Welcome to Not Just Money with your hosts, Doretta and Lee. This isn't your typical podcast about finances. It's a podcast about all the money conversations we aren't having, sometimes not even with ourselves. Join us on this journey of hard truths, lived experience, and the wisdom that comes from both. Because money is never just about money.
Hey Lee, happy March break season. Got anything exciting planned?
Yes, I've taken the week off, so we've got a whole week of activities starting today. There are museums, swimming, parks, all of it, because, why not? What about you?
Oh, there are going to be fun things to do with the grandchildren. And my son and his girlfriend are coming from Winnipeg, and she's from South America and has never been to a sugar bush before and has discovered she adores maple syrup. Who doesn't? So we're going to do the sugar bush with the grandchildren, and I'm really looking forward to it. I love the sugar bush. My favorite thing about spring coming. Now, I think March break, though, is actually a really good time for us to take another look at teaching kids about money, and especially focusing on the digital reality of money. There are just more challenges involved in teaching kids about money in a digital world than there were when you were growing up, when I was growing up, when my kids were growing up. There's this physical disconnect, where you don't actually see your money disappear the way it does with cold hard cash, and that makes it more challenging.
So true.
I mean, when you think about it, money's about opportunity, right? You can buy opportunity with it. Spending is about choice, and choice, whatever you spend it on, means you are not spending it on other things. So, I mean, unless you have an unlimited amount of money, and we are going to assume we do not, you make choices and there are consequences. But it's really easy to lose that connection when spending is just a double click on your phone.
We did look at teaching kids about money back in episode 7.
Yep.
It was an introductory look and focused on, I would say, first principles. So in that episode, we focused on you are always modeling financial behavior for your kids, whether you are conscious of it or not. Starting the conversation around money with kids and how to do that. Emotional challenges that hold us back from talking about it. We're talking about our own money stories and insecurities that's preventing us from feeling confident to start those conversations. We did an overview of the basic needs versus want discussion. We talked about teachable moments, when money conversations can occur organically, like at grocery stores, no pun intended, at any place you're doing shopping, whether that's a gift shop or the mall, at the bank, of course. And it's also about the importance of laying that foundation, that normalizing of the conversation around money. This will allow children the comfort of coming to you to ask the questions that will naturally come up.
Yeah, it's a really good summary. And I think that for our listeners, if you haven't listened to that episode or you want a refresher, go back and give it a listen. It's episode 7. Today, we're going to talk about how we actually help our kids build these skills. And we get it. Sometimes it can feel like trying to teach kids about money in a digital world is like trying to teach them to swim in invisible water or like wrestle an invisible opponent, right? But
Cute.
Cash is invisible. Spending is frictionless. Buy now buttons are everywhere. And then your whatever it is you want, it miraculously appears. So that's why, I think when you're starting, the key goal is to make money tangible and help them learn how to make deliberate decisions and understand that the decisions have consequences.
Exactly. The first principles are still the same. Teaching them about money is still about teachable moments. You need to identify and seize those opportunities where the lesson is specific and relevant to what they're interested in. You need to engage them where they are. It's just that the tools are different.
Do you know what the single biggest predictor of a child's financial habits is?
I bet most people would say financial literacy education. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, and most people would be wrong, at least in a formal sense. Financial literacy education matters a lot, okay? Of course it does. We wouldn't be doing this if it didn't. The
Yeah.
single biggest predictor of your kids' financial habits is your behavior as a parent. That's what the research in family finance shows consistently. And I mean, just think about this for a minute. Kids notice everything, and that includes how often we impulse buy, whether we argue about money, whether we plan purchases or react emotionally. They notice how we talk about wealth and debt and security. And so, if all the household talk about money is anxious or secretive, then the lessons your kids are learning is that money is difficult and stressful. But if the way you talk about money in your household is calm and open and practical, and that doesn't matter what your income is, we're talking about the way you approach it, they learn that money's a tool that can be managed. So, how you feel about money matters hugely. And you want your kids to develop not just knowledge about money, but competence in using it as a tool and confidence in their ability to do it well.
That makes so much sense. Which is why it's so important to deal with our own issues with money.
Yep.
And we've talked about this before in the context of how our childhood experiences shaped our attitudes to money, how we absorb our parents' attitudes and trauma into our own attitudes and behaviors. We want to make sure we deal with our own money demons so that we don't do the same thing to our kids.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So, as we established in our overview about kids and money, the best time to start teaching your kids about money is
Now, 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 now,
absolutely
now, now, now.
now.
Now, today, right now. If your kid is not asleep or at school, now, now.
It's never too early. It's never too late to start. And honestly, you are already teaching them, whether you are doing it attentively or not, because they are absorbing your behaviors and your attitudes. Now, starting now, of course, doesn't mean you're going to dive into discussions of investment strategies with your 10-year-old. It,
Unless it's your grandson.
oh, well, I'm not sure on investments, but yes, he does read The Economist. So started, I think, when he was 9.
Oh, sorry. So we're too old now.
Yeah.
10. We're already past that.
But it still needs to be age appropriate and needs to be grounded in their interests. So you have to seize those teachable moments we were talking about that emerge naturally in daily activities that emerge from the questions that they ask.
Say the first goal has to be to make money real for them. And even though they'll be dealing with digital money before you know it, I think it still makes sense, especially for small children, to start with physical money. For one thing, it's still important that they be able to recognize bills and coins. I mean, there are still stores that accept them and still places in the world that use physical currencies. But the most important thing is it's a great way to talk about what money is and to ground their understanding in the real world.
You know what really kills me? Cashiers who cannot make change in their head. It's like $7.53, and you give them a mixture of coins so that it comes back as like $2 even or whatever it is, and they can't do it. They just can't. They have to input it. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. I feel like I was once that cashier before I learned that mental math was a thing. So I feel for those people.
When I was in, I think it was maybe what, grade 3, grade 4, my teacher had this big thing. We had games every day to do mental math. And it was Yogi Bear, it was a cartoon character you probably don't remember, being attacked by bees. And he would hold like the number 6 in his hand, and the bees would have all the different numbers. And then he would point to them, and you would have to do 6 times 7, 6.8, 6.9. And it was all time to see who could do it fastest.
That sounds awful.
It was so much fun. And I always won.
Yes, of course. That's your competitive nature. I know.
Anyway. Yeah, I agree about starting with physical money. And something really interesting, the research shows that we feel psychological pain when we spend cold hard cash that we don't feel with digital spending. And that's why we spend more with credit and debit cards than we do with cash. And it's why we're more likely to spend impulsively. So if you want to have your kids get a grounding in that, to know what it actually feels like to turn over the money they've saved in exchange for something else, I think the best way to do it is with that physical money, at least in the beginning. Anyway, my kids started with Save Spend Give jars when they were small, I think when they started school. I think that's still a pretty reasonable idea when you're trying to teach them that money is in limited supply and that spending it involves making choices, as we were saying before, and being able to see and touch and spend and watch it go away, disappear, handed over. I think that helps make
Yes.
it a lot clearer for them. Does your daughter have the jars or a piggy bank?
No, she does not. Yeah, this could very much be one of those do as I say, not as I do moments. Ugh. So she's 5, so we haven't started an allowance or anything like that. I do review her accounts with her and her spreadsheet every time she is given like a monetary gift for her birthday or for a holiday, or if I sell something of hers that she's outgrown. Where we do talk about money is when we play store. So she really loves setting up a grocery store, and we use that playtime to talk about money and exchanges. I even have fake money, courtesy of the Canadian Mint. I'd be terrified of printing my own fake money. And now, recently, at your mom's favorite store, the dollar store, we talk about pricing. So, if she's looking at different items, I'll ask her what the price is and the price differential. And I'll say, okay, well, that's $1, that's $3. So, if you buy the $3 item, you can actually have 3 of the $1 item. And then, of course, next will be sales tax because we haven't gotten there yet. And at the store, I am pretty bad and I will tap, but I am very aware that I need to explain to her that it's not endless tap or endless resources and it's kind of like a magical goblin that pays for things. And I'll explain to her that this action is taking from our accounts that has to have money in it. Money that we deposit either through working or effort or gifts. I do think physical money is helpful for all the reasons that we've already listed, but especially when they start spending. They can hold it in their hands, pay for what they want themselves, and then see that it's gone. Kind of what you were saying about that feeling of loss.
Hmm.
But when it comes to teaching saving, you have to take it to the next level. If you are using jars or a piggy bank, I think it's important to make sure that you set a savings goal that triggers a visit to the bank. It's a great way to introduce compound growth. You get to explain the basic principles of interest, why money doesn't earn in your piggy bank but does at the bank. And when you move the money into a savings account, how the bank lends it out, then they pay you interest for using your money. It's a great lesson in productivity. Your money is working just like you did to earn it.
I think opening bank accounts is a really good opportunity for creating valuable teaching moments. It's a natural thing that when you're going there, you're going to have to explain and people will explain to them. I think it's
Yep.
important to make sure that you involve your child in setting up their account. Go to a physical branch just because some things are quicker and easier online. That does not mean it's better. Again, what we're really trying to do at the beginning is ground the fundamentals in reality. And then when you move on to the digital stuff, you have that direct comparison. We're digitizing something that happens for real. And I think brainstorm some questions to ask the teller or the account manager and make sure your child asks the questions. And it may be that you haven't started that with your kid when they're really little, but even with a teenager, if you haven't started yet, take them in, get them to open their account, get them to ask the questions. Really important.
Agreed. I think those are all excellent tips. And I think where possible, you should consider setting up at least 2 accounts, one that's earmarked for spending and one for saving/investing. You can even be specific that one of the savings accounts be for emergencies. It's a great habit to instill young. Even though I doubt a young child will have any money emergencies, but I am all about the subliminal messaging. And then if charity is important, you can also open a give or share account. And from the time that they are little, every time you deposit money, whether it's allowance or gifts, or as your child gets older and maybe earns money for chores or gets a part time job, make a point of separating the money into these separate accounts in the amounts you've already decided with your child. have them see it and show them how their savings grow. I think you'll see these eyes of amazement or wonder to say, hey, I put in so much money, and then a month later, there's a couple more cents in there.
Yeah. Do not underestimate how interested children are in money, even small children. If there is one thing that we learned from our financial literacy sessions that we developed and stuff, the kids will blow you away every time with just how curious they are once you give them the opportunity to ask those questions. So I think, yeah, separate accounts and allocations is really a great idea. I will say I did not do that with my children, but it would have been a good idea. I shouldn't say that. I mean, we had RESPs and stuff, but we didn't show them to them. But I bet you are. So you're ahead of me. There you go. So one thing we do see a lot with adults, and you see this in the research and you see it in social media and stuff, is fear of banks. They've never actually been in a real bank. Everything has been online. Everything has been digital. Remember that short story by Stephen Leacock? It's still like that. Nothing's changed in 100 years. People still get intimidated by banks. But when they have to negotiate a student loan or a car loan or a mortgage for the first time and they've never dealt with a financial institution in person before, it's a really scary, intimidating thing. So just think what a leg up you're giving your kid just to get them comfortable with, say, the people in their local branch, confident in their ability to ask questions, their right to ask questions. I think it's a great idea.
A short story by Stephen Leacock. Am I the only one here who doesn't know what that story is?
There was a time that every school child in Canada would have known that story. It's the Leacock Award for humor, right? It's that Stephen Leacock.
Yes, I know the individual. I don't know the short story you're mentioning.
Oh, it's about this guy who goes into the bank for the very first time to deposit his paycheck, which is I think $56, something like that, $51. This was written in the 1920s, this story, okay? And
It's a lot of money back then.
It was. And he's so intimidated by it all that he asks to see the manager alone in private. And then he accidentally walks into the safe instead of through an exit. And he's so worked up and uncomfortable that he manages to deposit his entire paycheck and then take the entire paycheck out again and leaves the bank. It's just one of those, like, he does everything wrong. I don't know, I make him sound like a moron, but actually he's a very sympathetic character and you really relate to it. It's good. Read it. It's in Sunshine Sketches from the Little Town. You can probably find it online.
Is that the end of the story? Like he leaves with all his money? Is there more to it?
No, that's the whole, it's just a little short story. And he's so intimidated. He deposits his money. And then the bank manager says, like, I want to take some out. Well, how much do you want to take out? And he takes it all out. And then he leaves.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, things not to do. And this is why we're advocating to make sure you alleviate some of that stress. So you are not like this gentleman or this character in the story where you go in and you're so flustered that you pretty much do the opposite of what you had intended. And I think it's important to mention that the kids understand that they will always care more about their money than anyone else does. And I know that that sounds like a weird idea, but the thought is that you really need to take an interest in your money because leaving it in other hands, you never know what's going to happen. And that it's not scary to ask questions. In fact, the more you ask, the more you know. And in some local communities, make friends with your bankers. Chances are they will be your child's future banker too. That's what they're there for. If you have the time, make a visit twice a year just so your child can check in on their money and see how that's going and have a quick chat. Remember, the goal here is to make money real for them. That makes the adoption of digital transactions more concrete. Doretta was saying it's like seeing what's behind the curtain. And as they get older, they will already be in the habit of allocating money to spending, saving, investing, and charitable giving. And they'll probably not even know where it came from. That's the beauty of good parenting. I think, anyways. That's what my parents tell me all the time. Because I'm like, oh, I'm really good at this. And they're like, oh, are you now?
Right. It was like when I asked my son, do you remember what you learned about money at home? And he said, yeah, I don't really remember. But I must have learned a lot because when I got to university, I seemed to know stuff that other people didn't know.
Subliminal messaging.
So you mentioned allowances. What do you think about allowances as a way to teach about money? My kids got allowances, especially as they got older, to teach about budgeting and saving for wants.
Like I mentioned, I haven't started this journey yet. How old were your kids when you started?
Trying to remember, I think probably when they started school with the save, spend, give jars. But I raised my kids in the country. The nearest village had a population of 700, and it was a 20-minute drive to town if we ran out of milk. So pretty isolated. They didn't get exposed to the kind of constant temptation that urban kids get exposed to. And actually,
Interesting.
there was not a lot of stuff for them to spend money on, to be perfectly clear.
Mm.
Can remember my daughter was doing a weekend program. This would have been when she was about maybe grade 6, grade 7 in downtown Toronto, and some of the kids saying to her, "What do you mean you live in a place that doesn't have a mall?" And she said, "I live in a place where they don't have sidewalk." So it's just a whole other world.
Priorities.
But I did use allowance seriously when they were in high school for very deliberate lessons that were really entwined with budgeting. And I think I mentioned before with my daughter, it started with a monthly and then a quarterly clothing allowance. You had to really plan what you wanted to buy over the school year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, allowances can be contentious. Parents who dole them out generally fall into one of two camps. The first is those who give a set amount that correlates to age, so $10 a week for a 10-year-old, or those who tie allowances to household chores, or I guess a mix of both. Now, some parents will argue that chores are the cost of being part of a family and shouldn't be financially compensated. Some offer the possibility of earning additional money for additional chores or outside what is your scope to take care of. I don't think there is a wrong answer. Even if you don't or can't do an allowance, but still talk to them about money, again, go back to episode 7, it will be okay. I never had an allowance. My parents couldn't afford it. And you know what? I think I turned out okay.
I think you did too. Okay, let's transition from the savings jars and the bank deposits to digital transactions, because it's not going to be very long before even a small child will notice that you are buying things without money, just happily tapping with your phone or with cards.
Of course they'll notice. They notice everything, and probably they've said something to you along the lines of, Mummy or Daddy or parent, just take out your phone. Because they know that once you use your phone, they can get the item. But this is your opportunity for creating more important learning moments. Show them cards, let them tap themselves, and even show them the charges on your credit and or debit cards. Nowadays, the charges are instantaneous. Unless, of course, you're getting a refund. Then it takes days. I don't understand, but that's the way it is.
You do
Blame the
understand.
banking system.
You do
Yeah,
understand.
I know. I'm just not trying to out anybody publicly. But it's important to tie the tapping to real consequences, to link the act of spending to the fact that you are making choices. Because before long, they will be tapping their own cards. And even before you get here, make sure you are taking them out shopping, giving them constraints, either dollar value or number of items. This starts reinforcing choices and finite resources. It doesn't always have to be about the money.
Right. So, with their own purchases, for example, like discuss the choices that they're making. If they want to save money for a specific toy, say, but they spend their money on sweets, they're not going to be able to buy the toy. Don't you come up with the money for the toy. They need to have the consequences of, no, I made this decision and therefore I've given up that. If they spend the money they've saved on some sparkling thing that they regret later, the money is still gone and they have to start saving again.
Oh my God, have you talked to my daughter recently?
Oh, what sparkly things has she been obsessed with?
What sparkly thing hasn't she been obsessed with? Actually, recently, super random, she's really into, and she's never had one before, but her friend told her that they picked it up at a gas station. There's a whole story. And I haven't had them for years. But a push pop? They're
Oh,
like
I know what they
Yeah, so
are.
they look like glue sticks, and essentially you push them up, and it's like a lollipop situation. But now, did you know you have these mega ones that has 3 flavors in one?
Oh my
This
heavens.
is what the I mean, before it used to be 1 flavor. Now you can have 3 flavors. So I'm doing a little experiment. I know with my child, someone is groaning in the background. She came home from school. She ate all her lunch, happy-go-lucky kid, and we decided we'd check the corner store near our house if they had one. We had looked at the dollar store on the weekend, they didn't have it. And as luck would have it, they did have it. So we bought one. We went through the price. I said, "What do you think? Do you think it is worth the $3.35?" I mean, it's a corner store, right? There's going to be a markup. And she's like, "Yes, because it will be double the amount of stickers she recently bought, because that was only $1.75 or something like that." I told her that she couldn't have this push pop previous. And so I had to keep my word. So I said, "Look, I will leave it in your little treat bag." She has this tiny little pocket that's attached to her backpack. But you can't touch it until you have eaten all your lunch all week and done your after school lessons. I will keep you posted on if she actually gets into it before. But I want to see how delayed gratification works in this case. Yes, I am 100% using my child as an experiment. One day this podcast will come and haunt me. But yeah, I'm gonna see how that works and whether or not she enjoys it more having waited all week.
Interesting. I think most people have heard of the experiments they did with children and delayed gratification and tried to relate delayed gratification with performance and all that kind of stuff. It's all been totally undermined because there are a lot of things they did not control for. Like children who are single, who are only children, are a lot better at, when you say you can have that, you get 3 of them in 5 minutes or whatever it is, than people who have a whole lot of siblings. They're going to go for it. Because they
It's true,
right.
because it may not be there 5 minutes later.
Exactly. Anyway, it'll be interesting. I'd like to see how she acts. Are you gonna keep reminding her that it's there? What if she forgets?
Oh, she's not gonna forget.
Okay.
Like, the one thing I've learned about my child is once she has a thought in her head, it ain't leaving. And she will bring it up ad nauseum until she beats you to capitulate in that moment.
Oh, that's too funny. Too funny.
I mean, these are the foundational lessons, right?
Yep.
In wants versus needs and in understanding the trade-offs. I think this is kind of a roundabout way of talking about that to see how she fares with waiting for that whole week. And in this case, to talk to your kids about their purchase calmly and reasonably. And if they are purchasing something they will use for 5 seconds, say that. Ask them if they think they'll play with it for more than one time, or point out that they have 5 of the identical things at home. And make sure you ask them what the price is, right? I've talked about even just doing that comparison to relate that to how much they have, or what is the trade-off between maybe 1 of this versus 3 of that, and how much they'll have left. I think that helps to make the idea of money concrete. But if your child has decided on what they want, in this case, it's push candy, let them buy it. And if they do ditch it within minutes, point that out. Not in a shameful way, I think that's really important, but to say, "See, you only have limited dollars. Utility is important."
And as Lee mentioned, it's important to put limits around what you treat them. I think that's really critical to this piece. If they've made a purchase with their own money that prevents them from having something else they want, you don't fill in that gap for them because it's the habit that you want to form. And you want them to do that when the stakes are low. Let them make those mistakes now when they're little mistakes, right? Have the conversations around the spend. Teach them how to comparison shop, like you were saying, 1 of this versus 3 of that. All these
Mhm.
little conversations, that's about trade-offs. And you can't underestimate how important that is long term. I think you can also involve your child in your own everyday money choices, depending on how old they are, what you think they're ready for, what's good value for money. Have them help you create your grocery list, do the grocery shopping with you, comparison shop. I know that was something I always did with my kids mostly because shopping for groceries is the one domestic task that I adore doing. I have always loved grocery shopping, like an adventure. And also I was stuck in the country with little kids and was the only time I got out was to go buy groceries.
I also think it has to do with the fact that you were probably one of those people that looked in other people's grocery carts to see what they were buying and then
Oh,
form an opinion or judgment on that. I can see you
oh,
doing that.
oh, I can go one better than that. My very first job was as a checkout girl, which is what we were called in those days at Loblaws. And I loved that job. And let me tell you, I judged. Oh, did I judge?
It's like, you put that in your cart. You're buying that. Anyways, another idea is if you're selling things on Facebook Marketplace, which I know a lot of parents do, you can involve them. I often bring my daughter to the sale. I mean, it's her stuff. Then the spreadsheet, of course, comes out and we add to the total. Even now, when we go grocery shopping, we talk about what's on sale. And sometimes, if it's a want, I'll say, it's not on sale. We're gonna have to wait. Again, it's not about affordability, it's about the habit and then the delayed gratification.
Yeah. And as they get older, you can really build on that foundation. I mean, for example, you can bring them to talk to your financial planner, review your investments together, discuss retirement or estate planning with their grandparents. I mean, just involve them in those conversations or let them listen in. The point is, you want to demystify talking about money. You want it to be comfortable for them to talk about, to ask questions.
I think that's a great idea. I have not done this yet, but I think as my daughter becomes a preteen or teen and will need to start thinking about how she's going to access her RESPs or her registered education savings account, I'll set up a call for her with our financial planner to talk about it. I do feel like I still have some time on this one.
You do. But as your kids get older, they'll be ready to start managing little budgets themselves and actually using digital tools themselves. Their own debit card, for example, or a prepaid credit card, or their own subscription. And that's the time for them to start using these tools, but again, with guardrails, boundaries on what they can spend. Because the lessons you want to build on now are around choices and resource limitations. You want them to learn, though, in a safe environment.
One thing about digital finance, it creates a trail. So make sure you review it with your child, and you can even do a comparison for month over month, year over year. Review what they spend, what they spent it on, discuss how they feel about the purchase now. Start looking for patterns, both healthy and unhealthy. The goal is to teach them about planning and how saving gives them options.
And another lesson you want to build in is how advertising is designed to part you from your money. And this is crazy easy with digital money. And for all the reasons we're talking about, the ease of it, the painlessness of it. And they can be unaware even that they're being sold. I mean, all these little micro purchases inside games they're playing, that kind of thing. You want them to be very aware of that. You want to teach them how to keep their antenna up. You also want to talk to them about online scams. Show them how all little purchases add up.
This is also a warning to parents who have inputted their own credit cards into online apps or games.
Ooh, do not do this.
We've heard so many stories. Without these guardrails, as Doretta has mentioned, your child can easily rack up charges.
Oh, I have heard those horror stories. We were on vacation in Mexico once, and there was a family there, and their kid racked up something like $1,500 in online charges. That was when just being online, they were charging you by the minute and stuff. It's crazy.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah. So the important thing is like set up those restrictions, make sure they're in place, have some of those immediate notifications set up so that you get pinged when your credit card gets used without the card present. Just make sure that you are controlling the environment in which they're acting.
Excellent point. So let's talk about digital tools. Now, most banking institutions have different apps for kids. Some are standalone, some are tied to the parents' account. The trick here is to pick something that is seamless for you to access. You have to make it easy for yourself. If it's an extra app or an extra step for you as a parent or caregiver, it makes it so much harder, so much more work. It's like having a gym routine, right? In this case, get rid of the friction so that it's easily accessed and you can have those conversations right now. Now.
Right, right. So check with your own financial institution on what they offer first. And then if that doesn't work for you, see what else is out there to help you help your child manage their account.
Encourage your kids to ask questions, help them think through decisions and point out patterns, and let them make mistakes. Like the 5-year-old in the dollar store or this push pop. Experience teaches best. If they spend all their monthly allowance, then they have to live with the fact that they have no money until next month.
Yep, because the time for them to make financial errors is when the stakes are low.
So let's talk a bit about teenagers, because this is where we're really preparing them for financial independence while you're still their safety net, or as many of my friends will say, still on the family payroll. Now, my daughter's only 5, but you've been through this. Even if you're starting from scratch, we know it's not too late to start teaching your kids about money. Teenagers always want something. It's just a bigger, more expensive something than they wanted when they were 5. So what are your thoughts on this, Doretta?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the basics are still the basics. And that's something that you always have to hold on to. And then there are other matters you'll want to discuss with your teens, and you'll have more opportunities to discuss money decisions with them, especially, like, as they get part-time jobs, start preparing for post-secondary education, as you were saying before. Oh, the first time they get a paycheck. I mean, I think every teenager I've ever known has wanted to know why there were deductions from their first paycheck. It's like they don't understand. They assume that they can multiply the number of hours by their hourly rate, and that's what their check will be. So it just naturally creates those opportunities for you.
Yeah, I think many adults think that way too sometimes, so it's not just teenagers. And thinking ahead to post-secondary education is also really important. Do you have an RESP or registered education savings plan for your child? Discuss it with them. Like Doretta mentioned, explain what that is and what it's for. It helps them envision themselves pursuing higher education.
Yeah, the research shows that just the very fact that there's an RESP set up for a kid makes it more likely that they will pursue post-secondary education. It's a game changer. I think another thing, it's really the opportunity with older kids, teenagers, for more in-depth discussions, things like credit and debt, investment, and the beginnings of long-term consequences of financial decisions.
Yeah, and also to continue risk discussions as they spend more time online and are perhaps making more online purchases. Perhaps with money they've earned themselves, you want to make sure you're continuing the talks, not just on things like marketing and micro purchases that add up, but also things like buy now, pay later traps
Ooh,
and online fraud and identity theft.
yeah, yeah. One thing is the kids are so immersed in this digital world, they're probably gonna be able to teach you some stuff about that. But
That's
the
probably
Yeah,
true.
but the important thing is you're talking about it, right? Like, you want to engage and keep them engaged so that it's deliberate. It's I know you don't like the word intentional, but it's a really important this is actually an appropriate use of that word intentional, right? That it
Yes,
is a
yes.
very deliberate, conscious thing that you are doing. Yeah. So the point is, like, keep the money conversations going. It's going to encourage your kid to have a really healthy relationship with money. And that's what the research shows. Regular money conversations between parent and child results in kids who grow up with stronger financial skills as adults. It's as simple as that.
And some helpful conversations to focus on setting priorities and making choices sound like explaining why you choose one purchase over another, talking through household trade offs, discussing advertising and consumer pressure, sharing financial goals you have as a family and maybe as an individual. And instead of saying, we can't afford that, maybe reframe it. to say we need to earn more or save more to purchase that. Or we have to cut costs, of course, if possible, somewhere else. This is taking into account that this item is something the family or child actually needs. But again, it's reframing it from a comment that ends all discussions to a doorway that starts the conversation about money.
Yeah, it does something about getting out of that scarcity mindset, right? That it's the doors don't close because you're the sort of family or whatever that is not for you. It's more about possibility, but the steps we need to take to make that possibility real.
Yep.
I think it's also still really important to let your teenagers make mistakes. As I said before, experience is a really powerful teacher. They call it controlled failure. Letting your kid just occasionally, they're going to overspend their allowance. They're going to buy something that disappoints them. They're going to run out of their spending money early. And that's okay. The mistakes will help them develop better long-term financial judgment. They won't realize that's what's happening, but it is what's happening. Your job as a parent is basically to keep those guardrails in place so that the mistakes stay small. And I think, obviously, to help with emergencies, but not with impulse purchases. That way, you keep the mistakes they make in the realm of education, not sort of catastrophic failures that will really affect their view of the world.
I think the thing to remember is that your goal is to raise kids who are confident about money and demonstrate good judgment, that they know the difference between needs and wants, that they know how to plan and how to prioritize, and they know how to talk about money and how to continue learning about it.
Okay, that is good. Okay, 3 key learnings for today.
I think in today's digital world, parents face the challenge of making money real and relevant when the physical cues are gone. We had piggy banks, save, spend, give jars, the physical act of handing over our money for something we wanted. This is not our kids' reality. It still makes sense to start with these concrete basics with small children, but it won't be long before you have to switch focus to ground money in reality. That involves deliberately making money visible by regular balance checkups, talking through their choices, and practicing managing small amounts of money by themselves. The goal is for money, whether digital or cold hard cash, to be a tool and not a trap.
Yeah, and what the research shows is that when it comes to family finances, the strongest predictor of financial habits is parental behavior. In other words, it's on us, like everything else. Kids learn so much about money from what we do and what we say and what we let them practice, not from the formal lessons that they get. They pick up on everything. And you might think you're shielding them if something, if things are tough, but you aren't. They see it, they hear it, they absorb it.
It's all about age-appropriate lessons in language they understand. Seizing those little teachable moments, letting them make mistakes when the stakes are small, blowing their entire allowance on something they will soon regret at age 10 is way better than $25,000 in credit card debt at age 25. Money lessons are kind of like compound interest. They start small and accumulate over time.
And on that note, that's us for today. If you've got any thoughts about kids and money and the challenges of making the digital real, or anything else for that matter, drop us a line at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com.
Good talk. You've been listening to Not Just Money with Doretta and Lee. Click on the show's description for links to resources related to today's conversation. Our aim is to share sources that provide objective information that can help you make informed financial decisions. Please rate and review our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, email us at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to be featured on the show, you can send us your questions and comments by a written email, audio file, or video file. Please include your name and city. This show is produced and edited by Lee, with original music by Leo Zhang cello and artwork by John Tu. Now for some legalese. Please note that the views expressed by our hosts and guests are theirs alone and should not be viewed as financial advice. This podcast is intended to be entertainment and educational in nature. Please seek additional professional support or information before acting on any podcast information. As always, good talk.